So I think I've really come to the conclusion that there is just no helping people sometimes. And there have been a couple of things that have happened this past week that have really led me to this point. So we have just finished celebrating the festivities for Santa Rosalia here in Palermo. If you don't already know, on the 14th and 15th of July every year, Palermo celebrates its patron saint, Santa Rosalia, with 2 days of festivities dedicated to her. On the evening and night of the 14th of July, there is a huge procession that weaves its way through the city itself with a massive float of Santa Rosalia, culminating by the sea with a wonderful fireworks display. And then on the 15th of July, there is a more subdued religious procession that takes place in the city. Now, this year was extra special because it was the 400th year of celebrations for Santa Rosalia. And so the parade on the evening of the 14th was even more extravagant than usual. The fireworks display lasted 1 hour, and the float was even more grand and beautiful than in previous years. So it has been a really, really special couple of days, and the celebrations will continue for the rest of the year into the beginning part of 2025 because of it being its 400th year. Now, what had led me to the point of not being able to help people was what happened yesterday. So I didn't get to see the celebrations on the evening of the 14th because I had some other commitments, but I did get to see the religious procession yesterday and go to see the float, which is currently in situ opposite the sea and will be for some time. And the float is magnificent. Like, I know from previous years that a lot of work and time and money goes into creating this float every single year because it changes every single year. Now, this year's, as I said before, was even more beautiful than usual to mark the 400th year, of course. And as in previous years, the float has been surrounded by tall metal railings to prevent people from getting too close to it, from touching it, and from basically damaging it. Now, this year, I was really taken aback because for the first time ever, there were people standing on the float as I approached it. And initially, I was like, wow, this has never happened before. Like, in all the previous years that I have come to see the float, I have never seen people clambering all over it before. So I thought, well, maybe it's the 400th year. They've decided to open it up for people to come up and view and take photos. Perhaps this is the case. But as I got closer, the reality became obvious. People had decided to open the metal gates towards the rear of the float and just let themselves on and take photos of themselves on the float. There weren't any police there. There was no security. It was just members of the public doing what they felt like doing. And it really grated on my nerves because I was like, the people here are the first to complain about this city. They are the first to complain even about these festivities, the amount of money that has been spent on them, including the fireworks. I mean, let's be honest, 1 hour worth of fireworks to music as well is not cheap. Like, I know in the UK, every year when we do it for New Year's Eve, it's like 10, 15-minute firework display maybe, and it costs millions. So you can imagine 1 hour's worth of fireworks, just how much that costs this city. And so people were complaining about this, saying that the money should have been reinvested into other aspects of the city, like the potholes, for example, and just general cleanliness on a whole, which in part I do agree with. However, when I saw what I saw yesterday, I was a little bit like, it's not always the city's fault. If the residents themselves have no respect for what they have, no amount of money you throw at the city is going to change a thing. And I was literally like, people here just do not have an appreciation of what they have. Like, this city is far from perfect. But if every single person took more personal responsibility and showed more respect for this city, I really do think it would look vastly different to what it does now, because essentially too many people here choose to put the responsibility on the shoulders of the local commune, the local council, in other words, or, you know, the region, or they choose to place the responsibility anywhere other than on themselves. And the problem with this is that they, in turn, choose not to show respect for where they live. And for a religious celebration to be clambering on a float, which, you know, it's surrounded by metal railings for a reason, right? just to take a photo just bewilders me. There is no respect, not only for the fact that it's supposed to be like a religious monument, but also for the fact that people have spent a lot of time and money to create it, and it's not designed to be climbed all over for you to have your photograph taken. Like, you can easily take your photograph standing on the ground, looking up to the float. It's massive. You don't need to climb onto it. And it just really bewilders me that people can be like this and be so selfish and yet be the first to complain that their city isn't perfect and doesn't spend the money in the right way. So there was that led me to this point. And then secondly, there was something concerning just my job as an English teacher, because I recently did a video, if you haven't already seen it, about the skills that I think are essential to becoming an English teacher here in Italy. And one of them I mentioned was patience. And the reason I say patience is because some students allow their ego to get in the way of what is best for them. I think as humans, we like to kid ourselves sometimes into thinking that we are better than we actually are. But what happens in those moments is we actually stop our progress and development because we place ourselves into levels and into positions that we are not prepared or ready for. Now, there is something to be said for pushing yourself and maybe going into a higher level, for example, when you're learning a language to help you to learn more. But if you do not have the fundamental basics, you are not able to even progress beyond where you began. And when a teacher expresses this to a student, it's not because they want that student to feel terrible. It's because they want to help that student. Yet if a student is adamant they want to remain in a level that is completely unsuitable for them, just because they have this notion that they are this particular level, I realize there's nothing that you can do to help them. Because essentially in life, sometimes you have to go a few steps backwards in order to progress and take huge leaps forward. Like, there is nothing to be said for saying that you are, for example, an intermediate level of English when you cannot even string a sentence together properly. Like, who are you kidding? You want to take in a certification at the end of your course? Wonderful, go ahead. But you've got to get your basics and foundation right. And if you're not willing to do that because you want to fool yourself into believing you are this level, there is nothing that anyone can do for you. And yet those people are going to be the first to blame the establishment that they take the course with when they don't pass, because they're like, I paid all this money and I didn't get the certificate I wanted. Well, because you didn't listen in the first place, And so this is where I really just kind of despair sometimes, because I think in life, you just have to accept the fact that you cannot help everyone. And I think it can be really frustrating sometimes, particularly when you know that what you're saying to someone or what you're trying to do for somebody is for their greater good. Sometimes you just can't help people. And some people allow their ego to get in the way of their own development and would prefer prestige over progress. And when it comes to places, well, some people have been used to living a certain way for so long that for them, it seems normal to continue in this way, even if it's not for their greater good. And so I think that has been the acceptance that I've had to come to terms with this week. It's okay. You cannot help everyone. But I think the important thing is that you accept that and you don't allow other people's actions to impact you. Like, people are people. I've always said it. We're super complicated. And I think the best thing you can do is work from a place of integrity and do your best as an individual and just let the universe take care of the rest, really. I'll see you in the next episode.